Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Norland Unwrapped. I'm just going to wait and make sure everybody gets logged in okay. So bear with us. We'll give it about a minute. I can see the numbers going up already, so that's lovely, especially as this evening's so glorious. So thank you very much for joining us. So we'll give it a few more moments. So bear with us. I like it when the numbers go up. It means it works. Brilliant. Give it about another 30 seconds and then we'll make a start. Right, I think we're thereabouts for the moment, and obviously people will carry on joining us as they log on and we get going. So thank you, everybody. Welcome to Norland Unwrapped. It's a lovely evening. As I said, I hope it's all lovely and sunny where you are, and I appreciate you joining us. I'm sure if you're sat in the garden watching us, that's even better. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine, and long may it last. My name's Kate. I'm hopefully that you have joined us before for other Norland Unwrapped sessions, and we've got to know each other quite well. If you haven't, and this is your first venture into Norland Unwrapped, you are very welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you and obviously introduce you to some wonderful people who are going to be talking to you this evening. We've got Julia, we've got Pollyanna, and we've got Lizzie, who have very kindly given up their time as Norland alumni to talk to you about their amazing careers. I hope you really enjoy it. Take as much as you can away from it. It really is something special to be a Norland nanny, and I know that our panel will talk about all their amazing experiences. So please feel free to ask questions. So from our perspective, there is a little bit of housekeeping. So if Julia can move the screen for me, if that's okay. Let's hope it works. There we go. Wonderful. Brilliant. So just to make you aware, this session, as with all the other Unwrapped sessions, is going to be recorded. And it will be available afterwards. So if you have to scoot off for any reason, if you need to go and collect your children, or you need to go and cook the tea or something like that, you're more than welcome to nip off. It will be recorded and available on YouTube afterwards. And hopefully you'll be able to view that session. Your camera is off and your microphone is muted, so we can't hear you. So that's absolutely fine, but you can hear us. And as I said, this is our 5th Norland Unwrapped session. All the other sessions are available on our website, and this is all about career pathways, and it has been very successful and very popular, which is great. And as I said at the very beginning of our Unwrapped sessions, it really does bridge the gap between the physical open days and our virtual events. So our next physical open day will be in May, and I'll touch on that a little bit later on in the presentation. So hopefully this will inspire you to come along and to find out more information, and to really kind of, enjoy yourself this evening. There will be a short Q&A session at the end of the presentation. We will try and answer your questions, so please do, as always, ask those questions in the button at the bottom of the screen. We will try and get through as many as we can. Can I just draw your attention to the fact of, if you have got specific questions about admissions, about a specific course that you want to do, about an offer or application or anything like that, can I ask you to please email the admissions department, or if you want to, you can email myself. It's kate.morgan@norland.ac.uk, or you can have a look at our FAQs on the website as well. And if it doesn't answer any of your questions, please do email us. If you can do that, that would be wonderful. The next session that we're going to have, which we're really excited about as well, is going to be a taster session of a degree and diploma experience. And that's going to be on the 1st of June. Those bookings will go live shortly. So do please have a look at that. I also want to draw your attention to engaging with our students as well. We've got a really fantastic system in place called the TAP system, the ambassador platform, where you can actually engage with our students. So if you have got questions and you think, actually, I'd like to ask a current student, please do feel free to have a look on our website. You can log on and book some time with them. It's safe and secure, and they'll be able to come back to you. Our students love to hear from prospective students, so please feel free to do that. Like I said, please do ask those questions, and I will answer. We'll get around to answering as many as we possibly can. So that is really my little bit at the very beginning. I'm going to pass you over to Julia. who's going to start the presentation, and I will touch base with you at the end. So over to you, Julia.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm hoping you can all see a very strange picture of me back in the 80s. I would just
love
like
the perm, Julia. Sorry, I've got to say the perm.
Well,
is
that wasn't a perm actually. That's my natural hair.
Oh, really?
So can you imagine how that would have been in the 80s? I was not the cutting edge of fashion. So you just spare a little thought for me and the cross I had to bear in those times. So hello everyone, my name's Julia, and I am currently the head of consultancy, agency, alumni and training at Norland, which is quite a long title. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the alumni and agency bit of it. But I'm going to start off with my career. Because I haven't always worked at Norland. In fact, I think I've been at Norland about 3 or 4 years. And prior to that, I was on the board of directors at Norland. So as you've probably guessed, I studied at Norland back in the 1980s. And in those days, it was in Denford Park in Hungerford. And you lived in. And you only had 1 weekend off a month, and of course now you have student accommodation, which is much better. And once I qualified, I was broke, and I needed money, and so I worked in central London they were minor celebrities back in the 80s, but they were paying quite a lot. And I went everywhere with a bodyguard, a chauffeur, I wore full uniform, went everywhere in a Rolls Royce. Bit of a shock to the system, but I earned good money. And then after that, I worked for a more normal family, again in London, and actually I'm still in touch with them even today. So my charges are now grown up and adults, but I still keep in touch with them. And then when I got married, I decided that I wanted to try something else. I didn't want to be a live-in nanny anymore. So I worked as a peripatetic assessor in early years, which meant that I used to go round visiting modern apprenticeship students in nurseries and training and assessing them. And one of the things that came up as I was working across the county as a peripatetic assessor was that I was very critical of other nurseries. I didn't like them. And I used to complain to my husband that they were dirty and smelly and horrible. And if I had a nursery, I would do it much better. And he must have been listening, because he was a bank manager or worked in a bank, and he shook hands and bought a nursery behind my back without me seeing it. So I was very upset about that when he rang me and told me he bought a nursery, put the phone down on him, didn't speak to him for a while, refused to look at the nursery. Gave in eventually because he kept saying to me, I shook hands on it, we've got to buy it. Went and had a look at it, hated it. It was everything I didn't like about nursery. So we struck a deal that he'd let me do what I wanted to do. And that's how we ended up with our nursery. And I'm going to show you a photo on the next slide. Whilst I owned the nursery, the Labour government then said that anybody running the nursery should have a degree. And I thought, well, I'm not paying anybody else to come in and tell me what to do in my own nursery. I'll do the degree. So in my 40s, I did an early years degree and gained early years practitioner status. And then because of the success of the nursery, we've been outstanding now for 4 inspections in a row. So that's nearly 17 years. Last inspected this December, or just last December. I was asked to kind of be like the hotel inspector of nurseries. So I used to go around nurseries that were failing or needed help and try and help them out. And that's how I got back to Norland. Norland asked me if I'd set up a nursery for them. After I set that up for them, I was then asked to become a director. So as a director and then joined Norland. Oh, it's down here, 2019 I joined. as a member of the senior leadership team and head of training consultancy. And then I got the other bits added on as we've gone along, which we'll talk about in a bit. So I've got a few photographs here for you. So this was me on the top left-hand corner. This was, I was in China actually for Norland. So before COVID, I used to gallivant all over the place for Norland, all over the world, delivering training and giving talks. And this is me in China with COVID. But I actually caught it in Japan. So I went to Japan to do a lecture tour for some people, for an organisation, got COVID there, flew to China, was really ill in China. You can see I'm a little bit flushed in that photograph, came off stage and fainted, not that I'm a drama queen. And yeah, and so that was me there. And then that's a picture of my nursery, which is in Somerset. And that's our graduation. So that is a little bit about me and kind of where I've come to and where I am now. I would never have dreamt I'd be back at Norland at my age, but I love being back here, and hopefully my main job really is with the alumni, and I really love doing that, which actually leads me on quite nicely to the other bits of my role at the college. So I'm head of the agency and alumni, and the Norland Agency is a team of people who work exclusively with Norlanders in order to find them jobs. So we only deal with Norlanders. So we don't just find you jobs, we're there really for life, which is where my job comes in. I was recently called the Norland Enforcer and Agony Aunt. So once you're qualified, you always have the opportunity to come back to ask for help. In fact, I think I've spoken to about 4 Norlanders this week about different things already. You know, questions they might have, problems in their jobs, things that they want some help with. And we have a really, really impressive list of clients, which we can't always tell you about. We're known for our discretion, but you can't really think of many famous film stars, pop stars, what else? Celebrities that we don't have some sort of contact with. So I've said a little bit of it here. Lifelong support. Once a Norlander, always a Norlander. And in fact, you never know when being a Norlander is going to be useful. So I have 2 French bulldogs. I've had them now 15 years. This was before French bulldogs were really in. Went to Crufts, met this really posh lady who had the best French bulldogs at the show. I went with a friend, couldn't persuade her to sell us some puppies because she said, no, don't ever sell my puppies. Kept talking to her, turned out she was a Norlander. And I said, well, I'm a Norlander. And she went, no. And she let us have 2 French bulldog puppies, one for me and one for my friend. So you never know when it's going to be useful. It's like a secret club almost. So yeah, so we assist with the recruitment process. We help you with your CVs, DBS checks and references. We help you with your contracts. We'll give you advice and guidance re salaries, nanny insurance. We give you links to early years consultants if you've got problems or queries. I'm also in charge of CPD, which is the continuing professional development training. So we always are offering further development for you. And alumni support events. We do an Norlanders picnic in London every year and various events throughout the year. And then there's also the Professional Association of Norlanders, which is called PAN. That's due to launch at the end of this year. And you join that as part of your Norlander status. So you can see here that, you know, once you're qualified, we don't just sort of send you off and never see you again, we try and keep in touch with you, and we're always interested in what Norlanders are saying and doing out there. So at the moment, the breaking news is that we have got 14 jobs for every one Norlander looking. So these are full-time jobs. So we have demand that completely outstrips supply. And this pushes our salaries up. And so we've got here some examples of salary ranges for you. And you can see how your salary ranges go up with experience. You'll see that London is pretty much the highest, with overseas, well, overseas is the highest. In Britain, London is usually around the highest, with overseas rocketing up. We have a lot of overseas positions and a lot of interest from America at the moment. So you will see how you can very quickly start earning some quite significant amounts of money. It doesn't always depend on the experience, but generally that's how we work out. And so you'll get a copy of this if you haven't had a chance to look at it in too much detail. But you will see that you pretty much go in at between 30 and 40. And we've got some comparisons for you just here to end on. So how do we compare 1 year after graduation with other degree subjects? And you can see how we compare here. We are up there with medicine and dentistry in terms of what you are actually earning once you qualify. And don't forget, majority of you are living in. So you don't have any costs, for example, accommodation, food, things like that, because you will either be living in or accommodation will be provided depending on the type of job that you go for. But I'm going to hand over now to Lizzie, because she's one of our Norlanders working out in the field, and her experience will be very current to share with you. So I'm going to hand over to Lizzie.
Thank you, Julia. Hello, everyone. My name's Lizzie, and I'm from Set 32. I trained at Norland in Bath from 2008 to 2010. Now, I knew from a really early age that I wanted to work with children and look after children. I used to babysit for all of the children in my local village and the surrounding areas. And I then discovered that I had a family friend who was studying at Norland. She was in Set 29. And my mum said, come on, let's go to an open day. So off we went. And I remember actually I just passed my driving test and she made me drive on the motorway for the first time on the way to Norland. So I always used to remember that every time I used to drive on the M4. That moment, but it was really special going to the college for the first time, and I just really knew that was where I wanted to train. That's what I wanted to do. So yeah, worked hard, got what I needed, got an interview, and that's how it all began, really. So no, as I said, I started in 2008. And I initially applied for the diploma course, but actually my year when we turned up, we were told that they were starting the BA honours course and we were going to be the first year to start on the course. So I mean, that was a massive bonus. And so, I mean, it's now great that I've got the degree and can do so much because I've got that, so that's great. Whilst training at Norland, I really enjoyed all the different aspects of the course. The placements were my favourite, as you just got to get the hands-on experience. All the different placements, from nurseries to state and independent schools, to being with the families, and also the hospital placements. When I was there, we spent a week on the maternity ward and a week on the paediatric ward. And I just remember, certainly on the maternity ward, it was really, really special. And I often always have that in the back of my mind now, thinking maybe I'd like to be a midwife. But that was really enjoyed that. So after my 2 years training at Norland, we started what was called our probationary post. And I remember the day actually that the job list came out, and we were all in the common room as such, and the list went live, and everyone's scurrying around being quite secretive, working out their top 5 or 6 jobs. And this job came up in southwest London, and quite a few of us looked at it and we thought, oh, that sounds perfect. 2 little girls, the eldest was 2 and the youngest was 4 months. And I later found out that they'd already had a probationer for the first 2 years. And luckily enough, I got called for interview. And straight away, actually, as soon as I knocked on the door and walked in, just had a feeling that actually it was really going to work. The little girl was also called Elizabeth, so I think that was a nice bond that we had straight away. But it just, yeah, it felt like a really great fit. And they offered me the job and I accepted, which was great. And shortly into my post with them, they announced that they were moving to Hong Kong, which was quite surprising and not strictly within the rules at the time, as we were supposed to stay in the UK. But after Norland approved that I could head off to Hong Kong with them, which was really great. And I ended up staying there for 5 years in the end with them, after initially thinking I'd finish my year with them and come back to London. I had such a great time and really enjoyed being the girls' nanny. And I mean, it was amazing being abroad and completely different to what I thought my first job as a Norlander would be. The only downside to that was it was quite difficult for me to carry on with the degree part of the course. And when I was there, we did the first 2 years whilst we were training, and then the 3rd year was split whilst we were working. So we had to carry on with the studies whilst working 12-hour days. So that was quite challenging. And obviously I couldn't come back to Bath, to Norland, for the lectures. But my lecturer was very good, and we had lots of Skype calls, I think, at the time. So anyway, managed to get that finished and flew back for the graduation in 2012, which was really lovely to see all the girls from my set again. And then, yeah, so I said, yeah, stayed there for 5 years, decided to move back, and thought I would actually quite like to train as a Norland maternity nurse. In my last 6 months in Hong Kong, the children I was looking after got a little bit older and they didn't need me as much. So I actually took another job and worked 2 days a week with them, and they had newborn twins. And that made me think, oh, I think I'd quite like to try and train as a maternity nurse. So I did that when I moved back in 2015, but then haven't actually ended up using that so far. Julie, would you mind to move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So as I said, I moved back to London after 5 years in Hong Kong, and this was in 2015. And I remember actually when I said that I was moving back to my friends in Hong Kong, they said, oh, have you got a job lined up? And everyone seemed quite concerned that I was moving back to the UK and didn't have a job. But I was pretty certain that, as Julia mentioned earlier, we are very fortunate and there are a lot of jobs for us. So I knew that it would work out. And it did. I got in touch with the Norland Agency straight away to say I was moving back to London. I'd like to find a new job, and could they help me? And so I interviewed with lots of different families all over London. And started a new job as a live-out nanny for 3 lovely boys who were 5, 3 and 9 months old when I started. And 7 years later, I'm still here. And still very much enjoying being the boys' nanny. My job has changed quite a lot over the years, but I do feel really fortunate that I've been with a family for so long, and I've really grown with them. as a family. But it's really great that the children are all at school now, but I still find lots of things to do to fill my days, lots of washing and cooking and all of the other things that we kind of people don't think that we need to do, and there's always something to do. So fortunately in 2019 my lovely employers nominated me for the Nursery World Nanny of the Year award, which I didn't know about at the time and came as quite a surprise, but it was really lovely and really special for them to nominate me for that, and I came second and got a highly commended award, which was really lovely, and I've still got the certificate I'm holding there is proudly on a shelf in my flat. And the children were very proud, but also very annoyed and cross that I didn't win and wanted to know why I didn't win, which was very sweet of them. And from after the award, one of the sponsors of the award was BAPAN, who were the British Association for Professional Nannies, and they approached me to help volunteer with their association, which I'd been doing for the last 2 years, which was a really great way for me to support other nannies and get involved with that really. And unfortunately they closed at the end of last year, but I really enjoyed my time volunteering with them and being an ambassador for them. Next slide please, Julia. Thank you. So why is Norland so special to me? Norland has enabled me to form lifelong friendships. Here is a photo of my friend Fran and I. We were put together in the same house when we started our training at Norland, and we quickly formed a close bond. We were actually known amongst the other girls in our set as Frizzy for Fran and Lizzie. And it was really special. We got to do our first placement together actually, and one of the little girls, we were at an independent school in Bath, and one of the little girls in my class I actually babysat for the rest of the time when I was training at Norland, and she actually contacted me not so long ago to say that she was considering applying to go to Norland, which was really special, and it's kind of a full circle of connections there. But yes, no, Fran's getting married later this summer and I'm going to be a bridesmaid for her, so it's really lovely. You definitely do make lifelong friends at Norland. And as I said here, that the Norland alumni is really important to me. I really enjoy getting to know other Norlanders. It's really interesting for me to hear Julia's story, and I'm going to hear Pollyanna's as well. But we all get up to different things. And one of the great things about CPD courses that Julia and her team run at Norland is it's always great to obviously complete the course and to further our knowledge, but also it gives us a chance to meet up with previous Norlanders who we've known, or to meet new Norlanders. So that's really great. Obviously the last few years it's been on Zoom, but we've still got to know each other. But no, I always really enjoy the CPD courses. So as you can see, Norland's opened quite a few doors for me, and hopefully it will do for you all too. And I'm extremely proud to call myself a Norlander, and looking forward to seeing what else the future has for me. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lizzie. I'm just trying to, sometimes it's going a bit slow. Here we are. So I am going to hand over now to Pollyanna. Thank you, Pollyanna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pollyanna, and I am set 37. And just like the Lizzie said, for her, I came to Norland because I knew that I wanted to work with children, with families. And actually, and this kind of might be a bit taboo in the Norland circle, but I remember going to the open day and feeling a bit intimidated because everyone else seemed to say, I've wanted to go to Norland since I was a little girl, or this has been my dream forever. And for me, it was a really kind of late decision. And it wasn't till I was, I think, in my second year of A-levels, or looking for universities, that I even found out about Norland. And I was really umming and ahhing, and I went to some other kind of more traditional university open days and Norland, because I knew that I wanted to work with children. I wasn't really sure what capacity. And, you know, I had kind of concerns, was Norland going to be academic enough? This sounds funny, but I was concerned there wasn't any boys there and what would my social life be like? And, you know, I just say that to if any of you have similar kind of worries, that, you know, that was exactly me. And you know, I went to some of the Norland open days and felt that it was the right thing for me, and kind of decided to take the plunge. You know, as I said here, I was really drawn to the varied course, the kind of really good combination of theoretical learning and being able to do the degree, but also with the practical things as well. And actually all those concerns I had about my social life and about the academic nature of the course were all completely unfounded, because I had such a great time there. I was there from 2013 to 2016. And firstly, yeah, in terms of, I had no concerns about social life, because I made some really amazing friends. One of my friends, Laura, stood in the left of this picture there. She was my maid of honor when I got married last year, and then I was her maid of honor when she also got married last year. And I still keep in touch with so many of my Norland friends, and so that was a really special part of Norland for me. And actually Bath is full of so many university students, because as well as Norland, obviously there's 2 universities as well, and so we had, you know, we met loads of other people from the other universities. I met my now husband in a nightclub actually in Bath, and he was at the University of Bath at the time. So those kind of, you know, that kind of was completely unfounded for me, and I had a really great time there. The placements, I know everyone talks about this, but it really was one of the best parts for me. I had a really great time in loads of different settings and schools and nurseries. Obviously had my hospital placement and families. And then for my last placement, I don't know if it's still the same, but I assume so. I was doing my dissertation in the last year of Norland, and you get to have a bit more say over what your placement is, depending on what you're writing your dissertation on. And I was writing my dissertation on how we might support vulnerable families on lower incomes. And so I requested to do my placement at a children's centre in Bath, inside the family support team. And that was a massive highlight for me and really influenced what I've kind of done since in my career. So I had a great time there. And then in terms of the academic work, I found that it was a really positive learning environment. And I really found that the degree kind of stood up to other degrees I'd seen at other universities. And I found that the learning environment was really supportive. I had loads of great lecturers who made the learning really accessible. So I never felt out of my depth, but I thought, you know, this is real kind of proper work I'm doing, and this is going to be really useful later on. So I definitely enjoyed that kind of academic degree side, as well as the diploma and the more practical work. Could I have the next slide, please, Julia? Thank you. So since I left Norland, I've had a couple of different nanny jobs. Obviously, I did my NQN year when I left in 2016, and I was a full-time nanny for 2 boys who, when I started, there was one boy, he was 10 months old, and then they had another baby whilst I was there. And I was actually live out, which I know isn't always the most popular choice. I think in my year there were only a few of us that lived out, and I lived with 2 other Norland girls in my year who were also doing that NQN year. So we had a flat together in Clapham. And although, you know, I know it can be slightly trickier finances wise, you know, we made it work, and we had such a lovely time living there. And, you know, all our live-in friends would come round. We ended up being the house that hosted all the social events. Everyone would come round at the weekends, and we had a really nice time living out. And for me, I've only ever done live out. And I think it's important to remember, whilst lots of nanny jobs are live in and lots of nannies prefer living in, there's definitely, you know, if live out something that you'd be more interested in, I think it's totally sustainable. in London, and you know, we definitely were doing okay, you know, financially, especially if you look back at some of the salaries that that was shared before by Julia. You know, the base kind of even live out NQN salary is still higher than what lots of my friends from other universities that had made going into London, and so it was still very manageable. And then I stayed with that family for about 18 months, and I went into another job, this time with 3 boys who were 6 months, 4 years and 6 years when I started. And this was a shared care job, which was something that was completely new to me. And my first job, I saw the parents for about 2 minutes in the morning and about 2 minutes at the end of the day. They worked all the time. This job, the mum didn't work, so she was around a lot. And actually, I really enjoyed it. You know, I know you've got to get on well with the parent if you're going to do shared care, and we did get on really well. But it was a really nice experience for me. I liked having her around. We used to be able to split up the jobs a bit. So otherwise I was doing kind of school runs all day. Sometimes she'd do the older ones and I'd take the younger ones, or we'd switch it up a bit. And we did a lot of travel there. They had a house in Ibiza, and they used to go skiing a lot. So we were away traveling a lot, and that was exciting for me. They used to kind of fly in this private jet that was very kind of obviously very new to me, all very exciting, and I really enjoyed it. I sometimes found it difficult to be away for long periods of time, and I think towards the end of that job I started realizing, although I'd had a great time traveling and some of my friends still doing travel nanny jobs, for me I was kind of, after 1 or 2 weeks I was ready to come back to London. So that really influenced me in terms of thinking about other jobs and thinking I might not find a job with lots of travel after that. And then I've been there about 18 months, 2 years, and I started what's now my current nanny job, which is part-time. So I do about 2.5 days a week with 2 girls who are currently 3 and 1. The 3-year-old, you can see she was my flower girl, and I got married, so she's in the picture there, looking very sweet with her very curly hair. And I have another job now, which I'm about to talk about, which isn't in the nannying kind of world. So the great thing about this current job is it's really flexible, and it fits around this other job. And so this is what kind of I've been doing since then, and alongside my part-time job. So initially, actually, when I had that full-time job with the 3 boys, my second nanny job, I decided I wanted to do a master's degree. And this again kind of shows how unfounded my fears were about maybe the Norland degree not being academic enough, because that was totally not the case. I applied to lots of master's degrees, and you know, I was worried because I thought, would people know what Norland is? Other universities, will that kind of stand against me? But it didn't at all, and I got lots of offers for doing a master's. I decided I wanted to be working full-time. Financially, I wanted the money, basically. I was enjoying that, and I didn't want to cut down my hours. So I found a degree that was part-time, completely online. So I managed to do it kind of evenings and weekends. And after I'd done my dissertation, looking at kind of vulnerable families and low-income families, I knew that's where I wanted to go into. So I did my degree in my master's degree in social and public policy, and it was really good because every assignment you got to kind of choose what area of policy you focused on. So people would focus on kind of housing or refugees or something, and I would always focus on family policy, so looking at things like free school meals or Sure Start children's centres or free nursery hours, and the impact that had on different families. And I did that whilst I was working, and I found it a really nice balance actually from my nanny job, which was very, very busy and very full on, very practical, kind of dealing with all 3 children at once, and doing my master's, which I actually found, to be honest, much calmer and almost easier, being able to just sit at home on my laptop or go to a cafe and do some work. And once I had got a bit further into my master's, I decided I wanted to look at what I could do outside of nannying within that field of working with vulnerable families. So I got a part-time job as the London Play Coordinator for a charity called PACT, which is the Prison Advice and Care Trust. So my role there was essentially to organise and facilitate play sessions for children who were visiting their family member in prison. So I covered all the main London prisons, which are all male prisons. So predominantly they're visiting their dad, maybe their brother. And what we would do, obviously the dad, you know, the prisoners can't get out of the prison, so children have to come in, and you know, as you might imagine, prisons are not a very child-friendly places at all. So what we would try and do is make it a more positive experience, set up activities, set up play sessions so that children could have a bit more of a normal experience with their dad. I remember one point we did a Christmas themed day, and we actually had one of the prison guards who dressed up as Father Christmas, and we managed to get a charity to donate lots of presents, and it was really special for the dads to be able to, obviously they've got no ability to buy anything, but obviously to be able to give their child a gift and say that it was from them for Christmas and see their child open something. So that was really lovely, you know, to be involved in that. And we did some work with babies. We got some midwives to come in and teach dads some things like bottle feeding or changing nappies, to give them a bit of experience kind of helping out with their baby. So that was really lovely. And it was me and a team of volunteers, and we used to kind of run those activities around. And then since 2019, I have worked as a family support coordinator for the charity Family Lives, and I run a family support project in West London that offers befriending support to vulnerable parents, and we offer kind of one-to-one support to help parents that are in kind of difficult conditions. Our programme aims to boost family well-being, improve family relationships, and help families get more active. And we often help families with things like grant applications, helping them with housing, referring them for food parcels. At Christmas, we got lots of little presents donated, and we made up these backpacks for our families and handed them out as gifts just before Christmas. And I do that kind of alongside my part-time nannying, and I find it a really nice mix of kind of, my nannying gives me that one-on-one kind of contact with children, and something I really enjoy. But my work with Family Lives is really nice because I get to work with lots of different families, families that are often in crisis or in vulnerable situations, and feel like we're making a difference with them. And yeah, that's kind of that brings me up to now, and that's what I've been doing since I left Norland.
Thanks, Pollyanna. Thank you. So you've probably gathered from what Pollyanna has said that actually what you can do, often people think, you know, Norland just produces nannies, but that actually isn't the case. And in fact, it's our 130th anniversary this year of when we were founded by a very incredible woman called Emily Ward. And one of the things that we're doing to celebrate that is we're listing all the different jobs that Norlanders go out there and do. And we're hoping to hit the 130 mark. We've listed some here for you, and these are all examples of what our Norlanders are actually out there and doing. And so you'll see that it's incredibly varied. And now that you have the early years degree, obviously you can then go on and do all sorts of things, just like Pollyanna described, via masters. So you can see all of these here, and these are all actual examples. So the world is your oyster, and often it comes with recognition. So people will say, oh, well, you're a Norlander. So I actually managed a jewellery shop for a while, and I went for the job. I went for the assistant job, and when she found out I was Norlander, she said, well, actually I've got a manager's job, do you want that? And so I managed a jewellery shop for a while. I didn't know anything about it, but I do like Cartier and Gucci, so that was fine. So yes, there you go. These are all the different jobs that you might be tempted with. Okay, so I think we're at the point where I hand back to Kate.
You are indeed. Thank you very much, Julia. That was amazing. Thank you so much, all three of you. it's fascinating just to sit back and listen to, you know, your amazing career. So thank you very much. It just makes you feel, like you say, you're part of an organization that really, you know, make lifelong friends, and I think that's something really, really important. So we do have questions. As I said earlier on, the camera is off, your microphone is mute. If you want to ask a few more questions, it's the Q&A button at the bottom, and no question is a silly question, so please don't worry about that. I do have a few, if that's okay, so I'm going to direct them at the panel. If you want to pop in, you know, answer each other's questions, you're more than welcome to do that. And I think this is quite a relevant question, because I think it's, you know, very, you know, from regards to a work-life balance. And I think people think nanny, you know, it's a full-time job, we get that, but, you know, potentially, you know, you might not necessarily have a life. So my question is to all three of you, because you've all been nannies at some point in your career, and obviously Lizzie is still a nanny, and Pollyanna is still a nanny as well, do you have a work-life balance as a nanny? How do you manage that, you know, relationships and holidays and everything really that you need to have a normal life outside nannying? So Julia, do you want to start with that first?
Yes, I think it can be a balancing act, and I think you need to be clear about what hours you're working and your boundaries. It depends where you're working as well. So but I was a bit like Pollyanna. I had a flat that was provided actually by my employer in London, so I was like Pollyanna, everybody came to me at the weekends. So during the week, yes, you know, I worked hard, I worked long hours, but I was lucky to have the weekends off, so I kind of felt lucky with that. So I don't know, what do Pollyanna or Lizzie think?
Yeah, I think part of it comes from being able to advocate for yourself, which becomes easier every job you get. But going into jobs, and before it would be about, do the parents like me? You know, do they want me to be their nanny? And now I look at it, of course I want them to think that, but it's, do I want to work for them? And you know, is my outlook, is my expectations in line with theirs? So you start to become better at picking up from them, you know, depending on what their jobs are. If you go to the interview and they're two investment bankers, you know, you're not going to finish at 6 o'clock every day, but maybe you're going to get paid much better for that. If you go, you know, I had a job where mum didn't work, I finished bang on time every single day, often left early because she was always at home, and you know, that helped. And so I've got friends in different situations that want different things. One of my friends is trying to buy a house in London. She's doing this job. She works all the time. She works weekends, but she loves it. She travels around the world. She wants the money. And she's like, I'm going to do this for 2 years. I'm going to get that deposit. And then I'm going to go back to a Monday to Friday, 8 till 6. You know, I'm in a different situation. I'm married and I've got another job. And so for me, it was quite important that I wasn't traveling. I was doing kind of more normal hours. So I purposefully, you know, sought out a job with employers that I know can facilitate that.
Yes, no, I'm happy to add to this as well. I was just thinking back to when I first, in my first job when I was a live-in nanny, and I remember thinking, how am I going to have a weekend? How am I going to get out in the evening? But actually, as Julia and Pollyanna have said, you set your hours, you sign your contract, and you pretty much stick to the hours. So obviously there comes flexibility. But I mean, most weekends in that first job, the family would go away. So I'd have the house to myself, and they were more than welcoming for me to invite family or friends over. And since then, since in my other jobs, I've become live out. And again, it's just about pretty much sticking to those hours. It's interesting, actually, before COVID, both of my employers used to go out to the office every day, and they'd never come home for 7. And I'm sure they won't mind me saying this. And I was always stuck at work later, whereas now actually one good thing of them working from home is that actually I always leave at 7. There's no excuse, I can run out the door. And again, have my weekends free, and if they do ever want me to work a weekend, we'll communicate it well in advance. But I do just think having great communication with employers, and I completely agree with what Pollyanna said, actually, as you mature as a Norlander, you do actually come to realise that it's more about do I want to work for that family rather than do they want me. It's definitely a bit of both, and you do need to have a great relationship with the parents, really.
I would add, as head of the agency, that if you're being, the jobs that are really, really highly paid, usually, there's quite a few demands that come with it.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree. And people that have taken high profile jobs and things like that, they're often clear, and they should be, about the fact that they're doing that because the pay is good, but the hours are long, and that's the compromise. You might take something that's a more normal 8 till 6, Monday to Friday, no overtime job. Realistically, you're still going to get paid well, but that's not going to be this crazy job that's paying you loads and you're traveling around the world, because you're going to be working for a more kind of normal family, as it were.
I think that's quite interesting, because we've had a few questions ask about boundaries. How do you deal with situations, boundaries surrounding working with your charges versus working with the parents? And like you said, I think it all comes down to that initial communication at interview. How are you going to relate to these parents? How are they on the same kind of trajectory as what you are? You're understanding each other, and how important it is to kind of build those relationships with the families. Would you say that communication is probably the most important thing as a nanny?
Oh
yeah,
yes,
definitely. Yeah.
And you get help and you get training on that at college, at Norland. But the other thing is, we always say at the agency, do a trial, and we try and match you with a family that we think you'll get on with. So if you're a sporty person, then we would try and match you with a sporty family. So it's important to think about what you want, because we can pretty much find you what you want, but you've got to decide it in the first place, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. We've got some questions probably for Julia at the moment. So this is, after graduating at Norland, do you need extra qualifications to become a nurse, maternity nurse, night nurse, or practitioner? I know Lizzie touched on that earlier, that you did your qualification, didn't you, Lizzie?
Yes, so yes, you would. You do a maternity nurse qualification. You can do that via Norland, or you can do it with other organisations. It's an added qualification which specialises. And then a lot of our Norlanders are just work full time as maternity nurses and get booked up very quickly. And often what they'll do is they'll work 6 weeks for the family, then have 6 weeks off, and then perhaps work another 6 weeks, or they might work solidly. Yes, and you can even do it online, this course, so it's not too onerous.
Fantastic. This is, I think, all three of you again, actually. So obviously, when you first found out about Norland, did you have much experience with working with children? And obviously Pollyanna's mentioned that she came to it quite late. And if so, would you recommend what kind of experience and what kind of knowledge would you have before you applied? Is there something that you can bring to the table? Was it volunteering work or something that really kind of prepare them if they were looking to apply? What would you recommend that they do?
I'd had experience with children, but I came straight from school, and some people in my year had worked in between and taken a gap year. I came straight from doing my A-levels, so I'd had experience, kind of work experience at school, and I'd literally just emailed some nurseries locally and asked if I could just come and help out for a bit in the summer holidays and Easter holidays when I was at school, and I found loads of them were very keen to have someone come in. So that's a really easy way, just to get a couple of days experience here and there to add to to your application.
Yeah.
And babysitting can be a good way. In fact, we offer a free babysitting course.
I was just about to mention the babysitting course, actually.
So yeah, you can so that gives you a brief introduction to babysitting, can be a useful idea. We're looking for people who like children, who love working with children. That's what we're looking for. So you need to be sure that you do enjoy being with children. Children know if you like them or not.
These things. Is that the same for you, Lizzie, as well, about the experience?
Yes. No, I remember when I turned up at my interview with my portfolio with lots of lovely photographs and letters and little pictures that the children I'd been babysitting for or had been looking after in the holidays had done for me, to kind of prove to Norland children really like me and I really like children and this is for me. But no, again, similarly to Pollyanna, actually, at my local I did some work experience at my local primary school and went back there, and also there was a local summer holiday, Easter holiday programme that, again, I just got in touch with the lady that ran the scheme, and she was more than welcoming for me to go along and help out. And yeah, again, not just lots of babysitting. And actually the summer before Norland, I was quite fortunate, through family friends, found a nannying role alongside them. Went on holiday with them for the summer holidays, and actually that was a really great way for me to gain some experience. Lots of people are always willing, if you volunteer, to look after their children. So yeah, no, it definitely helps to show, yeah, that you're interested in looking after children.
Fantastic. I think this is from a male perspective student. Do people request male Norlanders? Will a male Norlander find it a difficult role if it's not such a common thing? I think that's quite a relevant question, actually, isn't it, really, Julia? Obviously, from your perspective.
Our male nannies fly out.
Literally.
If I'm being honest. So yeah, no problems there. I mean, there will be some families who wouldn't want a male nanny, but it's really not a problem. So yes, we do, particularly for families who perhaps lack a male role model in the household, and they're looking for one. So I only actually spoke to a male nanny this week who wanted a bit of advice about something. So yeah, no problems there.
We've actually, I nanny in Notting Hill, and there's, I think, about 2 or 3 male Norlanders around, and everybody knows them, and everyone's like, oh, you know that male, because and everyone's trying to poach them constantly, because I see them at baby.
I haven't heard that.
Sing and sign. All the other mums coming, oh, maybe you could come work for us. Maybe you could come and work for us, because there are less, that there are women in more demand, definitely.
Yeah.
You have to feed that back, Julia.
Yeah. Yeah,
especially they've got like 2 or 3 boys, and they got a dad that works a lot, they think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I've got a question. This kind of encompasses a few of the questions that we've come, and it's really about, from the agency perspective, Julia.
Okay.
It's kind of a couple of things, really. How do the agency provide, advice and support, especially if there's potentially going to be working with a high profile family?
Yeah.
Is that different than dealing with your average family, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, etc.? Is there a certain criteria you expect them to follow, and how does the agency support them if something obviously goes wrong or anything like that?
Okay, so yes, so during your time at Norland, you will learn about working with high profile families. You'll learn about etiquette, you learn about some of the expectations that the families have. We will brief you quite fully before you go for a job, particularly with a high net worth or a high profile family, because their circumstances and what they're expecting might be different. So we would talk you through that. We would make sure that you were aware of it. And then, yes, absolutely. Usually it's me at the moment. I'm available to give you advice and help if you needed it, or you can ring the agency. But if it's out of hours, so for example, I'm in touch with people all over the world, because sometimes when you're abroad, you can feel quite lonely if you're struggling with something or you're not sure. But yes, I mean, there are things like, you have to be used to the travel. You might be working a rota. So we have increasingly our high net and celebrity families want nannies who work on a rota basis. So that's where you work 12 hours a day for a week, and then you have a week off, or you might work 2 weeks and have 2 weeks off. They're very popular roles. They tend to be more highly paid, and you'd be working as part of a team. So yeah, travel, I think somebody, I can't remember if it was Pollyanna or Lizzie, mentioned the private jets. There's the travel. You might be traveling at a minute's notice. So 1 minute you might get up in the morning and find out you're going to Monte Carlo in the afternoon. So there's that certain amount of flexibility. And I would say for our higher profile and higher net worth jobs, which do pay more, you do have to give kind of more of your time, because you're traveling with, you're doing travel. So it's not for everybody. And we do have some very, very normal jobs as well. You know, I say normal, people who just do, you know, who have professional jobs, you know, doctors, lawyers, barristers, working in the city. So, you know, it's not all high profile and high net worth, but obviously we've got those, particularly abroad. You know, so for example, in Dubai, Hong Kong, America's a new and upcoming area that's very, very popular as well. And I noticed in the questions that somebody asked about whether the qualification was recognised abroad. Absolutely. And also don't forget you've got an early years degree, so BA honours degree. So yes, the qualification is recognised. Norland nannies are recognised across the world. Brilliant.
I think this one is kind of to Pollyanna. I think it's quite funny actually. How do you manage having a husband as well as a full-time nanny job? Well, I can answer that one, but that's not because I'm a nanny. I think that's quite relevant for work-life balance. So yeah, definitely if you could answer that one, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, you know, whether it's a husband or a boyfriend or wife or just a social life, just friends, you know. For me, that was something that's always really important. I knew, like, as Julia has explained, all the kind of bits about high profile, I knew that wasn't for me. You know, it's important to me to have my own life, you know, to be able to spend time with my husband or my friends, or to have time for myself. So I've just always kind of sought out jobs that have been more normal, as it were, so that I can guarantee that more. And even in my last job, there was a lot of travel, and as I said, I found that difficult, and it's something I wouldn't personally do again. I've got friends that love it, but it isn't for me. But for me, having that shared care meant that I knew that mum was always around to hand over. And in my job now, you know, they're very normal. Dad works in finance, mum's a yoga teacher. So it's kind of a normal home environment, and my hours are very predictable. So, you know, I cycle home, I finish about 6. I'm usually home by 6:30. I don't, you know, I leave about 7:30, 8, depending whether it's school holidays or term time. You know, and I never really work weekends unless it's a birthday party, you know, and it's always agreed in advance. So because that's something that's been important to me, maintaining that work-life balance, I've just sought out jobs where you do start to, you pick up on that vibe when you go to interviews about what kind of their expectations are going to be in terms of flexibility and hours. And if that's something that's is important to you, you can definitely find those jobs where the boundaries are quite consistent there.
Fantastic. We've got time for a couple more questions because I did look at the clock and it is running away with me. So I just wanted to say we've got someone who's booked onto the open day in May, which is fantastic. And her question is really about how the college stays in contact with alumni after finishing Norland. Is it through email? Is it through events? You know, you said, you mentioned earlier about reunion days and, you know, lifelong friendships. Is there quite a tight network, and how they kind of, you know, stay in touch with us really if they need that help?
Yeah, so we have Facebook pages, and so there's a Norland Facebook page. There's also a Norland. You also often do your own Facebook pages within your sets. We have a magazine that goes out once a year. We also have an email newsletter that goes out quarterly. We also have an alumni section on the website, which you can access, which has we write blogs, fact sheets, advice on subjects that Norlanders ask. You can also look at the jobs that are available on there. Reunions we organise, and you know, you can ring the agency. You know, even if you haven't got your job through the agency, you can ring us up and ask us for help. We never turn a Norlander away.
That's really good. I have one last question. This is, I promise this is the last one, and I think this applies to everyone. So very, very quickly, can you just say how your Norland training prepared you for your life in general? What were the key things that you took from your Norland training that you apply now and works as part of your life?
Oh, what a lovely question. Go on, Lizzie.
I would say communication is a big one for me. I remember that being drummed into us in our employment weeks towards when we were finishing Norland, and just always just remember to communicate well with the children and the employers. And I always take that with me everywhere in life, and I feel that communication always really helps. and if there's a problem, just talk it through, and don't ever bottle things up and hide away.
Same with Pollyanna and Julia.
Yeah. Communication's big, and just for me, that kind of good work ethic and high standards that being at Norland really kind of drills into you. That is useful in nannying, but even in my other roles, just having those high standards for yourself and for children's care has been really important, and has been kind of influential in lots of other things I've done.
Fantastic.
I'm going to be soppy, and I'm going to say Norland has two mottos. The first one is love never faileth, and the other is strength and adversity. And I don't think you can go wrong by remembering those two things through life. And I'm a firm believer in that love never faileth. Be nice.
I think that's a lovely way to end the session. Thank you, Julia. And that's really all we've got time for. We will go through the questions that we didn't get through and try and respond back to you, but please do check on the FAQs, and you can email us inquiries, email or admissions, or you can email me as well. I'm just going to point you in direction of our next open day. If what we've said this evening and the amazing alumni stories as well have sparked your interest and you want to find out more, I highly recommend coming to our next open day in May, because that will really give you the opportunity to talk to students, to talk to staff, and to really get a feel for Norland itself, because we are so unique, we are so different than other universities, and it would just give you an idea of exactly what we can offer you. So please do book onto that. It is available on our website now, and we'll be sending out further information on social media and to careers advisors, etc. And that's it, really. That's all we've got time for. I know I've taken a little bit more extra time, but I think it was so lovely to hear from you all. So a massive thank you to Julia, to Pollyanna, and to Lizzie for giving up their time to do this. I hope everyone's found it really beneficial. As I said, the next session will be on the 1st of June, and I will keep you updated on our website of how you can book onto that. So have a lovely rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of the sunshine this week, hopefully. Stay safe, take care, and we'll see you at the next Norland Unwrapped. Thank you ever so much. Bye-bye.